so it falls under that. They have a $300 to $1,000 fine, so a $300 minimum fine for having a pit bull within Wyandotte County, the unified government. In addition, they have 90 days, and then if a defendant refuses to remove their pit bull, it's considered contempt. The judge has to find the person in contempt if they fail to remove it upon being ordered to remove it upon a conviction. And each day is a separate offense. So, if today somebody gets found guilty of having a pit bull, they fail to remove it, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're looking at 4 separate offenses, 4 90-day sentences, 4 $300 to $1,000 fines. Those are just things that they have that I found very interesting because it's a lot more severe. So if you want to go the route of keeping pit bulls out of the city, do we need to maybe have more severe punishment in place for that? Because as we know now, we have pit bulls in the city, even with a ban in place for about 20, 21 years. Also, make sure that the defendant is liable for all the cost and care of the pit bull being housed in the shelter, of any fees, DNA testing, and whatnot. Wichita allows pit bulls. They define it very similar to what we do, but if you go on their definition, they've got an 8-factor test about the head, the eyes, the ears, the neck, the body, the tail, the hindquarters, and the coat. And as long as the dog meets 5 of the 8 of those, and that's language taken out of the case of Hearn v. City of Overland Park. My apologies for that. But in the Hearn case, that's where those factors are taken out of, is the language in that case. So this is informative there, and that they've given a much better and definite description of what a pit bull is. And then they have the whole issue of checking the puppies, because they understand that they may not show the same features at that point. Wichita allows there to be pit bull breeders in the city, but you have to be a licensed one, and you can have no more than 2 unaltered animals, meaning they have not been spayed or neutered. That's what they allow there. But there are still severe restrictions. You have to have the animals registered. You have to have them microchipped. That way you can automatically figure out whose dog is whose, where they go, and why they're unaltered. But in subsection C, it says it's unlawful for a person to harbor more than 2 pit bulls, so you cannot have more than 2 in Wichita, but they have to be altered. They have to be spayed or neutered. That intrigued me because in the law literature that I've read regarding these attacks, the vast majority of them, if not all of them, have been unaltered. That's something that kind of comes into play, is if they're altered versus unaltered. They did have basically a grandfather clause in there because they passed this because they went from 3 down to 2 of what people were allowed, and basically allowed them to have the animal then. And gave the right to appeal. Also, I guess kenneling and breeders associations are a big thing down in Wichita. I've never been a part of that, but they have exceptions for that, for unaltered animals being in the city. Manhattan struck out to me just because basically a lot of people have talked about this issue of, well, I'm going to move to Manhattan. And to be honest, it's not the easiest ordinance to fall underneath. It's very strict. It's very severe. It has a lot of requirements for people that want to own an animal. It's dangerous. So you have a lot of the same language that we have in our dangerous dog. You have a propensity, tendency, or disposition to attack unprovoked. You've got a dog which has attacked either a human being or a domestic animal. You have guard dogs. You have an animal that's already been determined to be a dangerous dog at an administrative hearing. Also an animal that's been convicted of aggressive animal at large. We don't have a provision like that, but they do. So it might be something we want to look at no matter what happens with the whole pit bull issue. But then if you have a dangerous dog or one that reasonably should be a dangerous dog, so it doesn't have to be labeled as one, it just has the possibility to become one. There are 7 restrictions on the owner, 7 restrictions on the dog. You have confinement, leash and muzzle, notice, registration, reporting, insurance, neutering, and identification. The confinement As I said, this is severe and strict. For our dangerous dog ordinance, even if somebody's labeled a dangerous dog, a canine is, you don't have these same restrictions. Because they regulate the kind of fence, chain link fence you have to use with the spacing on it, how tall it has to be, whether it has a bottom or it's embedded a foot into the ground, how it's locked. You can't leave it on a patio or porch. Even if you have it indoors, you have to have something more than just a screen door or screen window in the way. So if it's summer, you've got your pit bull in Manhattan and you just leave the screen door open, all the screen doors, all it's there, you're in violation of their ordinance possibly. Leash and muzzle, so if it's out, they even regulate the kind of tensile strength of 300 pounds and no more than 4 feet. You have to have the dog closely attached to you as well as close to you. You have to put beware of dog, not only at your residence, but on the run the animal's kept in. You have multiple signage that you have to have for the dangerous dog. The registration reporting, this harkens back to my time as a public defender because this reads almost exactly like offender registration, and that's the core I first knew. Because you have to microchip, you have to register. If you change addresses within, I think, 5 days, you have to notify the city clerk of that changing. You change your address, you change who owns the dog, you have to report that. All of those issues you have to report within a certain amount of time or you're in violation of the ordinance. They also require them to have $100,000 single incident bodily injury or death insurance if it's deemed a dangerous dog. They require spaying and neutering, and they require identification, the microchip that goes with the dog. Also includes documentation that's been properly inserted, goes all to the size, coloring, distinguishing features. And then Manhattan goes on to actually define what a dangerous dog is and says if you have these particular breeds, not just pit bulls, the Staffordshire Terrier, the Pit Bull Terrier, the Staffordshire Bull Terrier, but also chows and a number of others, 12 total plus 13 is if you have any mix of those. You're held to a higher degree of standard of care for those breeds of dogs. So it's almost as if it's a per se dangerous dog over there in Manhattan because you're held to a higher standard. Subsection D, I'm going to summate this. Basically, this is if an animal control officer or a police officer has probable cause to believe that a dog is dangerous, they can write an affidavit and submit it to the municipal court judge to have an administrative hearing on that dog to deem it dangerous. What's interesting is they refer to Charter Ordinance number 34 over there in Manhattan, which allows the municipal court judge, you don't have to go to a district judge or a district magistrate, but for a search warrant, the magistrate judge can actually sign a search warrant for a dangerous dog. They've charted out of that. That's something that I found interesting. I talked a little bit with Kay Jackson over there in Manhattan about just trying to figure out what exactly they have there. But that's the whole process they have there is going before the judge. The judge determines whether or not the affidavit is sufficient to hold a hearing, and then you have the hearing. Another part is under subsection F, the second part here, is any person who's been convicted of having a dangerous dog is not allowed to have a dangerous dog outside the one they already own. It also prevents dog ownership during that time. At least a period of 5 years. So what you're looking at is if somebody has a dog that is dangerous, not vicious where it's actually attacking, but something dangerous where it has the tendency to attack unprovoked. By ordinance, you can prevent them from owning a dog at that point. That's how Manhattan works. So that's what they have. So that brought me in thinking about what options do we have. As Mr. Dinkle and I talked about it, it's not just an easy yes or no question. There is the yes or no on whether or not this commission chooses to keep the ban or repeal it. Regardless, there are things to look at. So I want you to look at the ban we have. We have the ban in place. That's our ban. 21540B18. Shall not keep, harbor, own, in any way possess a pit bull dog. And we use the definition that everybody else does. This is our dangerous dog ordinance, 21545. Use very similar language as Hayes, Manhattan. We even have a part in there where it's not a dangerous dog. If it's defending itself, if somebody's trespassed or committed a tort, we have that in place. But to declare it, it runs the similar thing. We have somebody cited for dangerous dog, then it's murky on where it goes from there, because the ordinance isn't 100% clear on the process. I know having the ordinance in place has helped either label dogs as dangerous or work to resolutions that are just in terms of dangerous dog, at least in the last year and a half that I've dealt with it on about 4 to 5 occasions. We've been able to work with it because I started basically filing paperwork to label the dogs as dangerous dogs, akin to how they use a domestic violence tag in criminal cases or how they use that CORA offender registration tag. But in terms of the actual language of our ordinance to use this, it could use some tuning up, to be honest. Because you basically seize and impound and cite owner for dangerous dog, but there's no set thing saying dangerous dog by itself is a violation. If it's a dangerous dog and it's at large, if there's a dangerous dog and attacks someone or attacks another animal. So it has to be labeled one before it's criminal. I covered that. That's the criminal aspect of it. It has to be declared dangerous dog first, and then we get the criminal in place. So we can't declare dangerous. We run into a gray area because under the Control or Protection Ordinance, it says dangerous dogs are prohibited from being in the city. Under the Dangerous Dog Ordinance and licensing, it says if it's a dangerous dog, it increases the licensing fee for registration. So if we're registering and licensing dogs in the city, are they actually banned? So part of it's just, which one do we go with? But if it's determined to be dangerous, then it allows for increased punishment of the owner as well as possible destruction of the dog. A thing that we ran into with this is people claiming their dogs are service dogs, and because the ADA, there are restrictions on what we as a government under Title III and Title III can actually inquire in as to that. People have cited the Fair Housing Act, and that applies only to landlords, not the city. We had somebody try that earlier this year. So the thing to look at in the options is the big two is if the city commission wants to maintain the ban or if they want to repeal it. If we maintain it, do we just stay the status quo? Do we make additions or changes to the dangerous dog? Those are different options that I see. Things I would just ask the commission to think about. If if the city commission repeals the ban, is it a blanket repeal? Do we have wild pit bulls, free ranging, or do we increase the dangerous dog ordinance and redefine that? Those are just thoughts that I've had in looking at what the options are. Because even if we look at the dangerous dog, if the city commission votes to maintain the ban or repeal the ban, I still think looking at dangerous dog options is important as well. Because even if we ban pit bulls, does our dangerous dog ordinance have teeth to it? Does it have restrictions? Other things to think about is the presumption of dangerousness, microchipping, registration. Spay and neutering is a big one. Muzzle, leash, signage, all that list of things that Manhattan really went through in depth. I just wanted to highlight to the commission case law. In 1989, there's a case before the Kansas Supreme Court that dealt with the breed-specific language. Overland Park severely regulated pit bull owners and the pit bulls themselves. Plaintiffs were upset by that. As we know, people are passionate about their pets, their animals, their furry children. Yeah, they use the same language as Junction City does to define it. People had previously registered the dog as a pit bull, and so under the ordinance, they also said if it's previously registered, it's prima facie, it's assumed essentially to be a pit bull. They challenged it. They said it was vague because they said that language saying if it looks like a pit bull, then it's a pit bull is too vague. They also claimed equal protection claims, saying, hey, you're targeting us specifically as pit bull owners. Well, it made it up to the Kansas Supreme Court. They said it was not vague. It says a factual determination essentially by the judge as a trier of fact, not just the trier of law, to be able to determine that. They also said it wasn't too vague because it was defining it and giving things to look for. What we also see is it didn't violate due process. Because we have a police power here in the city given by home rule for the welfare, for the safety of the city is able to make regulations such as that to regulate the use of property in ways that can be dangerous to the citizens. Also, it's not an equal protection issue given that the dogs are property. They're not people themselves. And that they're not necessarily a protected class. The plaintiffs appealed to the United States Supreme Court. They denied the writ of cert, basically meaning that ruling stands. And that law has not been overturned since. It was actually reaffirmed in 2011 in State v. Daniel Lee, where they tried to say, I think it's a murder by basically animal, and they're trying to say the pit bull was not, again, try to say that vague argument. And they said based on Hearn, case law is already in place. I'm just curious if the commission has any questions or requests. I've also asked Vanessa Gray of the animal shelter here to talk about the temperament testing because that was brought up last meeting, if the commission wants to hear about that.
Sure.
Please.
On which part?
If she would like to come up, that'd be great.
Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, the director of the animal shelter here in town. Mr. Stites talked to me a little bit about temperament testing, kind of what we do at the shelter, what we do with temperament testing. So we have adopters come in all the time asking if this dog's good with dogs, cats, kids, anything like that. We have rescues as well that ask these questions. So it's kind of something that we need to know just so we can inform everybody. So for dog testing, what we do, let's say somebody comes in and they have a dog of their own and they're looking for another dog. We ask them to bring them to the shelter. We go outside, we do on leash. So parallel walking is the first thing we do. They walk side by side, they do not touch. We're just walking up and down until they get a little bit more relaxed with each other. Once we kind of see that they're more relaxed, we call it nose to butt handshake. It's like a dog shaking hands with the other dog. So that's when they sniff each other, get to know each other. This is where we kind of can tell if they're going to have an issue with this dog, etc. So then we do that. If everything goes well, we do an off-leash introduction where we just drop the leashes in the yard. So that way if anything does happen, we can grab the leashes really fast. We do have some type of testing. So there's bark testing. We do a little bit. We don't do the full list. I have it here if anybody wanted it. I only have one copy though. Bark testing is behavior assessment and reactivity checklist. So it can kind of tell you about, so the basic gist of that is kennel approach, possession, touch handling, food, correction, dog-to-dog intro, dog-to-dog food issues, and then overall behavior. It's a whole checklist that you can do. We do bits and pieces just because we don't have the resources to do the full testing as we would like to, and we just don't have the staff for it. But this kind of gives us an idea on how these dogs are going to react to these types of situations. So it gives us a really good idea. As for testing the dogs with children, obviously we can't just say, hey, someone just bring your kid in. Obviously we don't do that. But if someone is interested and they say, well, I do have a child, we do take the dog out on a leash. We let them know that we will have the dog there the whole time. We watch their body language, the dog's body language the whole time, as well as the child. We want to make sure that they have proper manners when dealing with dogs they don't know. We also teach this to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, kids all the time. Just so they know how to interact with dogs. I think learning dog behavior is one of the biggest steps that can help a lot of this, especially with children. One of the testing that we can do just to see if they are okay with kids like to pull on ears, tug tails, things like that. So we kind of do some of that at the shelter with the dogs. So we do try to tug on their ears to see how they react with that. Hugging or holding, see how they respond to any restraint. We're trying to get a fake hand. It basically is a fake hand on a stick. So when the dogs are eating, you kind of put that near them just to kind of see how they're going to react with somebody messing with them while they're eating, which we don't advise ever doing, but you know, children, they tend to do that. So we're trying to get there. We're still kind of moving forward. We just don't have as much staff as we would like to do all of this testing, but it's some stuff that we can do to give us an idea of how they're going to be. We, of course, do all of this without putting the staff or the animals at risk of injury, so we do it very carefully. Like I said, we watch animal behavior, their body language, They do give off clear signs. So we make sure to watch that. When testing them to see if they're okay with cats, basically what we do is we have a cat in the room. We have the dog always on leash. We watch their body language again to see how, okay, are they stiff? They're not moving? Are they wanting to just play? Things like that. So it does take a little bit of time, but it's good to know for the public when we are adopting dogs out, whether it be a pit bull, whether it be any other breed. We do it with every single breed. Any dog that comes in, especially for our rescues, they do ask these kind of questions. All of this stuff we did learn. I brought in a group of trainers from Iowa. They came down and did a free training with us to show us a lot of stuff, not just behavior, leash skills and things like that. That would help us. But they were willing to come back. I did invite law enforcement to that training, and they are willing to come back again so we can get more law enforcement involved so they know how to handle dogs. Because a lot of the law enforcement, I don't think know a lot of the dog behavior, but I know a lot of them are willing to learn. So it's just one of those things, just getting them to learn it. So that's just what we do at the shelter for behavioral testing.
Great. Any questions?
Yeah, ma'am, how many pit bulls have you put through this test since you've been the director out there?
I wouldn't be able to know the correct number because we do it with every single dog that comes in. So any pit bull that we had in, we do it with every single one. We do it with any dog.
How many of them have failed?
We won't, it's not necessarily a pass or a fail test. There's some that are pass or fail. So basically if you're speaking in the terms of a pit bull, or any other dog, to be honest, let's say that they're great with cats. They're great with these tug, pull, things like that. Some dogs, they're just not good with other dogs. We could test a dog with this dog, they're not a fan. But then somebody comes along, we test them, they're perfect. It depends on the dog. And
I think he meant aggression towards people.
Oh, towards people?
I mean animals too, because we've had
Right.
other animals killed by pit bulls in this town before.
Right, and we do note
Please.
that. We do note that. I don't have a specific number on how many would have failed the dog-to-dog testing. Just some don't get along with certain dogs. There's some that just get along with males, some just get along with females. Small dog versus big dog, it really just depends on the dog. I can try to get a more specific number, but it's really hard to tell just
What
because.
happens to the dogs if they don't pass your test? Again, you said it's...
Which part?
Well, I guess the aggression towards humans and other animals.
Okay, with the humans, so it's kind of a gray area. So the humans, it depends on what is causing them to react that way. We don't really have a set in stone, like, okay, they're just not bad with people, they're just not good with people. There's always something circumstantial that can potentially be leading to it. It's like some dogs just don't like males, some like females more, and vice versa. But if they are to the point where, let's say they're going crazy or anything like that in the kennel, to where we can't handle them at the shelter, then we do have to make a decision to euthanize because we cannot adopt them out if they're going to react that way with their handlers, meaning us, our staff. We can't put that in the public. So there is times where we have to make tough decisions, but it's best for the dog, it's best for the public.
How many have you put down? How many pit bulls have you put down since you've... Because I know you get them once in a while because the police department have seized them or whatever, and they've been abandoned. How many have you put down since you've been there?
I sent you the different numbers, but I don't know if I sent you. In regards to behavior towards people, I would say this year only one. As for last year, I'd have to get a more definite number on how many were, but we don't typically do it for that reason, because there's always rescues that will be willing to take them at last chance. But we do for health reasons or behavioral that we cannot reverse, and that's with any dog that we do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Well, who would like to start?
Mayor,
Sure.
could we hear from the chief of police?
Sure.
Well, he didn't hear from him last time. I'd like to hear from him, please.
Okay. Kind of like church in here tonight. I think you're kids.
Too cold in here.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have some information that I'd like to pass out to you all. You might already have some of the statistics, but
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I come before you as the Chief of Police of the City of Junction City. Part of my history dealing with animals in the community started around 2005 when I became a member of the Animal Board Shelter. And all this getting rid of the pit bull ban first started, to my knowledge, in 2007. It was brought to the commission. And then in 2011, late 2011, we formed a committee made up of veterinarians, friends of animals, lawyers. Mayor Landis and I were on that committee along with Commissioner Florence Whitebread and other community members. We worked on an ordinance for almost a year and a half, and the current ordinance, I believe, was passed in January 2013. And part of that board, we talked at great length about the repealing the pit bull ban. We also talked about limiting the number of dogs and cats. Currently, the state law says you can have 19. And we were very into bringing an ordinance with 5 of each, 5 dogs, 5 cats, and maintain the pit bull ordinance. It came down to a vote in January of 13. We kept the ban and we kept the 19 dogs state law as is. I know how contentious this is because I sat through months of commission meetings with people just like you see behind you that are for repealing the ban. And some of the information that I see, I'm here to talk about. Also, somebody's got to talk about the victims, and the only way I can do that is really statistics. And when we talk about statistics, everybody has their version of it, and whether it's from dogbites.org or from National Pit Bull Victims Awareness, it all comes down to, well, what statistics do you believe? And one thing that I read, it says, fatal and disfiguring pit bull attacks increased 830% in the last 7 years. In the last 4 months of 2015, pit bulls killed the same number of people as Dobermans killed in the last 60 years. 27 people in the U.S. were killed by pit bulls in 2014 and 27 in 2015. Approximately 83% of the victims are under 13 years old, and most are under 3 years old. 48% of people killed by pit bulls in 2014 were family members. The majority of pit bull attacks are unprovoked. In 30 years, in the U.S. and Canada, 60% of dog attacks were by pit bulls. That's out of National Pit Bull Awareness.org. Information that I'm sure all of you here have received numerous emails, maybe letters, phone calls from people all over the country. Because of 3 weeks ago, the news was here. I'm sure it's up on Facebook and Twitter and those type of accounts. And so people are calling, and from the police standpoint, all I get from people is, please don't get rid of the pit bull ban. They send me letters. They send me information. And I don't know, okay, do I believe any of it? I watched a video of a doctor in Atlanta, said in 1 year, 1,300 dog attacks. And he says the difference between a dog bite because dogs bite, but they say pits maul. That's the difference. And this doctor from Atlanta was saying, if you are a parent and you have a child under 2 or 3, please don't have a pit bull. And we can talk about how the dog was raised, how it was trained, whether it to be a fighting dog. That's, I can't go in and sit there and say, okay, that dog looks like it's been mis or abused as a dog at somebody's home. All I know, if it's growling at me or tries to attack me, it looks vicious, and I fear for my officers having to take action. But I also fear for the community. The statistics say, depending on who you believe, 1 to 5% of all pet owners in the United States have pit bulls. Okay, so 95% do not. And so, it's that 95% that we also have to look out for. And I know it's a very passionate, emotional thing when we talk about pets. But when they say that that pet turned on a dime, why did it? I don't know, and the owners don't know. But people always start saying, well, okay, it was abused, or it was somebody provoked it. Junction City Police Department statistics. I went back, wanted to go back since this ban was in place 21 years ago, but we recently changed to a new records management system in 2009, and so in 2009 or 8, I could only find 22 pit bull cases. But from 2009 to 2018, August 1, we've had 359 pit bull related cases in the city of Junction City. So for the past little less than 9 years, we've had that many cases. And I can go by every case that we can find. What was the animal control or the police officer called out to? And August 1st, pit bull running loose, 2 pit bulls running loose, tied up in yard, 2 pit bulls running loose, black and white pit bull loose, 2 pit bulls running loose, mixed pit bull chained up in the yard. One house had 1 pit bull and 11 pit bull puppies that we took on July 3rd. We came back on July 20th, took those same animals. It's like, so we just gave them back, and we got to do it again. So we can look at the statistics of when an animal attacked. Okay, this is a brindle pit mix attacked another canine. 2 pits fighting at the residence. This is all from 2018, and I have 55 instances just since January 1st of this year. We can talk about, well, I have seen statistics where people said we had 1,300 pit bulls in the community, and then last week I heard 700 pit bulls in the community. Well, if that's the case, we're not doing a very good job. It's not my job to determine what is against the law and what's not. My police department operates on what is the ordinance and what do you want us to do. And since it's still on the books, we are mandated to go and enforce the law. And so it sounds like from people are telling me that my officers aren't doing their job or my animal control officer aren't doing their job. And so that either tells me that I'm not doing a good job, or I need to have direction on how to get my officers to go do it better. Or we rescind this and we don't look at this anymore. You all have the information before you, and I know that what I've seen in the past, and I'm talking to our city attorney, Britton, sometimes it can be tough to enforce. But when we have over 1,000 communities around the country that have bans, and we have supposedly over 90 in Kansas, and then we haven't even mentioned every military base in the United States, and I don't know if it's worldwide, but they banned the top 5 largest dogs, including pits. and that's all military-wide. And so I don't know who made that decision or how they got away with it, but there must be a good reason. And so I'm not here to debate whether you vote one way or another. I'm just here to give information and tell you that for the safety of our community, I think the non-pit bull owners are not going to be showing up in here, but somebody should speak for them. Be glad to answer any questions you may have of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, please.
Sure.
Obviously, I think for those of you who weren't here 2 weeks ago, I obviously came out in favor of public safety. I'm the former chief of police in this city. I retired 2.5 years ago, 2016. And I was here when the pit bull ban went into force. Part of the reason at that particular time was every drug dealer that we were running into in Junction City decided they wanted to have a pit bull. So instead of when we did drug raids, we were taking into consideration how we were going to have to deal with that pit bull. Once this ban went into place, the pit bulls went away. And we didn't see them any longer because of the danger that the officers encountered when we went on these raids with these dogs. We did have a severe attack back in the 1990s where a young lady's arms were shredded. The officers ended up shooting that pit bull. I am a proponent of public safety, and I've always have been. And as I told the gallery when I was here last time, I couldn't live with myself if I felt that I had anything to do with proving this ordinance, and then someone was later on injured or killed severely by my decision made up here. Since just in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with them, but there was a 2-year-old boy who was attacked and killed by pit bulls in Philadelphia on August 2nd by 5 pit bulls in a house. And police say responding officers see the child being attacked through the front door and fired shots at the dog, killing 1 animal and wounding 2 others. If you saw a video of the officer shooting through the door trying to rescue this pit bull, it's quite a thing to see. On the 5th of August, 57-year-old woman walking in Chicago, attacked by a pit bull and killed. And that was just, 2 days ago? Chicago police fatally shoot pit bull that killed woman in South Deering, Illinois. We're not making this stuff up, folks. This is reality. This is true. Don't tell me it can't happen. It can happen. It can happen. And I'm sorry that that is true. But there are those irresponsible. And I think in this case here, if you watch the news reports of this, 2 weeks before that, this same dog had attacked another person. When they did attack this 57, when it did, people tried to get that dog off it with shovels and sticks and couldn't do it. Chicago police had to shoot it to get it off her. I don't know how we can, I understand your passion, and God knows I appreciate it. And I do love Emily, and I love her causes. I'm a former dog owner. My Brandy passed away several years ago. I don't currently have a dog, but I do love dogs. And I loved it when the Junction City Animal Shelter became a non-kill shelter. And Friends of Animals took over that operation. And I applaud Linnea and I applaud Emily for everything they have done in this community for our animals. I watch these videos all the time with these horrific situations where horses or dogs or whatever are put in these terrible situations where their owners are irresponsible and starve them, beat them, or anything like that. And there's nothing more I want to see, and is those people to pay for those things that they do to those animals. But unfortunately, folks, there are bad owners and there are bad dogs. And there's just nothing you can do about it. And one of the, I told you last time about the case up in 2016 up in Topeka where the child was killed. I heard on the video, I think I heard Emily mention that I knew he was going to bring that up. Well, I'm going to bring it up. That was 2-year-old Savannah Edwards was killed in on or about December 14th. I'm sorry, not Savannah. Apologize. Piper Dunbar. Piper Dunbar, 2 years old, reported missing and found killed by her family's pit bulls. A friend of the family's pit bulls that was living with her back in 2016. Once again, this isn't made up. This is the real thing. It's real life. But I want to talk about the email I got, which I shared with my commissioners, from Janine Ashwell, the grandmother of Savannah Edwards. And this is 2-year-old Savannah right there. Let me read you what she said. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can. In 2012, we lost my much beloved granddaughter, Savannah Mae Edwards, to a pit bull attack. I hope we never have to face that pain again. In short, it was at a family member's house, and the dog had been around Savannah many times before. But that day, in that one instance, it all changed. People can think that the dog is safe, and it might be until it's not. By then, it's too late. You can't tell them because they just don't want to believe it. Those dogs are extremely dangerous, as you know, and I'm so proud of you for saying so. I wish people could see what happened to our family. It was awful. I watched my daughter lose her daughter. My family watched us fall apart mentally, and the magnitude of that is huge. Cousins, nephews, sisters, brothers, moms, dads, and kids too, not to mention the guilt. I'll stop now because I said it would be brief. This is Savannah. It was 2.5 years old, and that's her right there. And this is real life stuff. Real life. And I'm sorry that I disagree with you folks. And I do applaud you, and I appreciate how you feel about it and the passion that you have for this breed. But as a person who all my life is dedicated to public safety, I feel that this is something that I just cannot support, and that's changing this pit bull ordinance. It's the responsibility of this commission and all the members of this commission to protect the citizens of this community by whatever means necessary, no matter how unpopular that decision might be. And it's those tough decisions, folks, that we have to make to protect our community. You may not agree with it, but if one child is killed, or one person is killed or severely injured, and we have had a person severely injured not too long ago when Jim Butler worked a case down on East 12th Street where a small child had been bitten in the face by a pit bull, a family dog. And received, I don't recall how many stitches, some 20. But it is our responsibility to protect this community. And I am not going to agree to change this, to lift this. That's the way I feel, Mayor, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I want to say some comments regarding this this subject we're talking about here. For most of you, this is probably the first time you've seen me or heard me talk. I apologize. I missed the previous meeting where we discussed this, and you guys discussed this, and I apologize if some circumstances kind of out of my control. But I just do want to state my comments and my feelings about this. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for your involvement. This is a huge turnout, and I feel like as far as me being the commissioner in this city, it's valuable. It's important that I listen to your concerns. I hear you out, do the research in order to make a good judgment call on this. So Emily, I think you the one stood up. Thank you for that. And for the record, you will see one more like on Facebook because I want to hear. I want to see these comments come in and see what's going on in this city. And I'm also the commissioner that sits on the animal shelter committee with Vanessa and some others. So I hear their concerns. They're the other side of this as well. One thing I'll say as far as when we look through these things and consider our judgment call on this is you know your dog. You live with your dog. You see it. You love it. You're with it all the time. What my concern is, your dog doesn't know me. Not to say it's going to do anything, not to say, but that's my only concern. A lot of times I'm not too skittish of dogs. I was raised with a small dog. So a lot of times I'll see somebody walking or with a dog, and my wife, she's kind of more skittish with our little one. I have a 5-year-old, and so I'll get away. I said, well, I don't usually get too concerned until I see the owner get concerned. So I'm pretty usually nothing happens. It's pretty nice, we move on. But that's the only thing I want to say is your dog. So, and as far as us up here, we're deciding on something that can have an effect years down the road, or that a person, like I said, it has not in your family that hope, God forbid, something does tragic happen. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And as far as a commissioner, what my whole thing is on this, my whole take is my heartbeat, and what I want you to hear from me is, as a commissioner, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'll say that. We're going to list your concerns. I hope to hear more from you. But for the sake of Junction City, we're going to err on the side of caution. I'll just put it like that. And so, hope to hear some more. Doing some research that we're just, like I said, we're considering this, and as we look through this, that we'll definitely talk to you guys. I hope some of you hang around so we can talk and meet, and I would like to visit, get to know you a little better. But that's just my whole concern on this, that we have to be cautious of everyone in this city. Like I say, your dog, you're with them, you feel comfortable around them. So just for the record, I just want to say, but I think we do need to look at something, because if we do, as some of you guys have stated, there is pit bulls here. And I've heard that from several people. I know, like I said, it's a known issue, so I feel like we need to definitely look at something here, because obviously, just something. But that's my heartbeat on this, is that we're going to err on caution, and we're going to look at this and decide and try to see how we should go forward with this.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to see everyone that's come out this evening. Since the last meeting, I've heard, well, just to back that up. At the last meeting, we had the opportunity to hear from a lot of the folks that attended that meeting, who voiced their concerns about the pit bull. And as I said at that meeting, I do appreciate your efforts. I also feel sad for the breed of animal, the pit bull. I also, as Commissioner Brown spoke of, we have received a lot of emails, messages from people, whether it was electronic or in person, that would like to see the ban lifted, but many others would like to see the ban stay in place. Biggest concern is safety of the community. And I'll just share with all of y'all here today, our family that I'm a part of has been affected by an attack by a pit bull on our niece. 2 years old. Sitting in her carrier, sleeping. The mother went to visit friends. Visiting on the deck or the back patio. The little girl was asleep. And by the way, her name is Faith Ann. Asleep in her carrier, not bothering anybody else, tucked in there. Her mom and friends went into the house or residence for a short time. Not long later, they hear all the screaming. The residents, the people who lived there, had 2 boys that happened to go outside to play. They went around the back of the house. The pit bull was latched on to Faith Ann's face, onto her mouth. All the screaming and crying and commotion that was going on was the 2 boys trying to do what they could to get this dog off of little Faith Ann. Mother and other friends, adults came running out. They did everything that they were able to do to get this dog off of her, which they were able to. Faith Ann was rushed to the emergency room where she received numerous or an undisclosed amount of stitches into her face, to her mouth, with follow-up and many, many appointments. Faith Ann graduated high school this year, and she's getting ready to head off to college. But every time she looks in that mirror, she's reminded of her young life when she sees her face and the scarring from a pit bull, innocent little 2-year-old sleeping, was attacked. Again, I understand your plight and what you're trying to do, but I, as a commissioner, or we as commissioners, we have a lot of responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is the safety of the community. And I am not in favor of lifting that pit bull ban. Thank you.
I said that I would work and get myself more educated. I'm the one who follows the page secretly or not so secretly. I did take some time, and like Officer or Chief Breesy said, you can look at the statistics for a pit bull ban. You can look at the statistics against a pit bull ban in every other dog. My main concerns with this are, how do you regulate or manage bad dog owners? I don't know how we as a city commission can say you're a bad dog owner or you can't do this as a dog owner. So our only option or alternative, I guess, to that is to say you can't have that specific type of dog. So likewise, because we can't manage everybody and can't manage poor dog owners, I also am in favor of keeping the pit bull ban in place.
And then there was one. Everybody's got a story, and I understand, and there's a lot of data out there, certainly. We got a St. Bernard puppy when we first moved here, little Ginger, and she is my running buddy. We used to run a lot. I mean, it's hard to believe that St. Bernard would run. She was actually very athletic. And at 18 months, my daughter, about 4 or 5 years old, had a little neighbor girl over. Ginger was sleeping in the entryway, and she leaned down to pet her, and Ginger, for no reason, just latched on her face and neck and got her off, and she did the 10-day quarantine. The little girl did okay and everything. It was just latch on and then off. So thought, well, it's just maybe she got spooked. You know, let's just kind of wait and see. And then a few weeks later, she went after both my kids. So that was the end of that. We had to put her down. I don't believe there's a bad breed. I think you can have a bad dog, but not necessarily a bad breed. It's hard to legislate morality and responsibility. We deal with these problems all the time. And if everybody was a good owner, very responsible, our budgets would be a lot less. There would be a lot less things in this world to do, but they're not. And we have rules and things in place because of people that don't take responsibility, and things can go bad. And we hear about, deaths periodically. It's a sad thing. There's obviously no support to lift the ban at this time on this commission, and both my kids have pit bulls, and they're sweet as can be. I never knew much about the breed until they had them, and I was around them and stuff when I go out to see them in Dallas and Kansas City, and very sweet. They've got a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. My son does, and they do fine. You never know when a dog's going to go bad. You just don't, and I think it can happen with any breed. I've got a sister-in-law who was attacked by a neighbor's pit bull when she was out for a walk, and she'd known this dog for several years and went after her and latched onto her, and she screamed for the owner to come out and finally get the dog off her. And she had a lot of stitches and injury, and took her a while to get back, and she won't have anything to do with that ever again. That dog was taken care of after that, but it's just sad. It's just too bad it's not cut and dried. And one of the major tenements that we have as commissioners, number one, is to be objective when we come in here. Try not to come in here with preconceived notions and biases and so on. Look at all the data, talk to people, get educated, and be responsible about how we do things. And we try to do that, and we don't always agree, and that's okay. You know, we have respectful debate, and that's fine. But I just don't see that there's a willingness of this commission to change the ban at this point. So if it was going to be done, it would have to be done at a public vote. And it wasn't out of disrespect, and I'll look at your signatures, but it's not going to matter for this body. That's all I was trying to get at. And then that's why I asked Mr. Stites to review what acceptable signatures are, just so everybody's aware and on the same page, if you do want to pursue that route. I liked Manhattan's ordinance a lot. I spent a lot of time reviewing that the last couple of weeks. I think it has a lot of really good things in there that would encourage responsible pet ownership. Is there a perfect situation? Nope. Is everybody going to follow it? Nope. And things could happen. I mean, and I know we have dogs here in town. I get it. I understand. But I just don't feel that there's a consensus to want to change it at this time. So, and I'm a big dog advocate. I love dogs, and my kids' pit bull they're a lot of fun. I never knew much about them before, but it's a tough thing. So, and I'm sorry that this ban punishes good owners that are having to leave our community, even though they are responsible. They take care of their animals, they socialize them, and do all the things that they need to do, but we can't have them here because of those that do not. So I'm sorry, but I just don't think there's going to be a time right now to do that. So we appreciate everyone coming out. I don't think we've ever had this many people here. I mean, I think we could raise taxes 20 mils and we wouldn't have this many people here, but I do support you and I appreciate what you're doing. You've been a very respectful group coming here, and we appreciate how you do things. I've enjoyed people coming and speaking from the heart. I think that's something we don't get enough of, so I thank you for doing that. Any other comments?
No, Mayor.
Nope.
Everybody good? Good? So we will leave things in as is. It sounds like we do need to review the dangerous dog thing, and maybe there are things to
Update and correct.
update that,
and
perhaps in the future.
I would agree.
I would agree that they could tweak that.
I can bring a few.
If he finds shortcomings with it, absolutely.
I agree.
Anything to make your prosecution easier and the police department's job easier.
And the community safer.
And we'll see what we can do. I might come with a suggestion or two on clarifying the process. The big issue I saw with the dangerous dog ordinance is clarifying the process for what it takes. So I might, in the next meeting or two, try to bring something before the commission if that's what you want.
Please.
Very good. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is consideration to select a consultant to package a grant application for the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant.
Mayor and Commissioners, we talked earlier about we want to submit for a community development block grant for road improvements on a portion of Spring Valley Road. Last year, we used Ms. Oldie, Deb Oldie, to write the grant. She contacted her this year. She didn't want to be totally so. Working with Northwest Kansas Planning Development, who is monitoring our grant this year, they have a fee of $3,500, and they will have Deb write the narrative for it. So, some we have to have in place, and like I said, we're planning to probably ask for the full $700,000 maximum grant, which we have to basically match 50-50, but that's what it's going to take for that kind of project. And they're well experienced. They've been in grant writing business for.
And do they get paid out of a portion of what we get, or do we pay them a flat
No, we're going to
fee?
pay them up front.
Okay.
We pay them $3,500 up front, just as, now last year, of course, the Play for All group paid for that, fee, but they paid it up front too. No guarantees.
Well, I think the improvement of Spring Valley is definitely a plus.
Yeah.
That'd be a good start.
Yep.
Yep.
We need a motion to approve this contract.
I make a motion to approve the contract for, I need to know what to say.
Administrative consulting and application package.
I make a motion to approve the grant application for the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant.
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment?
No.
All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item is consideration to apply for the 2018 Hero Fund Grant to assist in the purchase of equipment. Chief Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, come before you this evening requesting permission to apply for the Hero Fund Grant. Hero Fund Grant is a grant foundation that's about a year old that was established to provide safety equipment for firefighters. We are applying to help fill out some of the equipment needs we have for our task force to assignment. Helmets, gloves, knee pads, that safety equipment that our guys will need. It's a matching grant, but what we're looking at is approximately a total of $8,000. So we would match $4,000 out of our fire reserve for this one.
Any questions for Chief Johnson?
As presented, it says you're applying for $6,500 and would have a $6,500 match.
I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I didn't print that one out. I thought it was 4,000.
okay.
And it didn't say what type of equipment, so,
It's helmets, gloves, knee pads, all the safety equipment that we need, the eyeglasses, all of that type of material that we use when we're doing structural rescue.
that'll equip how many?
We have 12.
Thank you.
Accessories. Got accessorized.
The small things that we don't have, and when you're crawling around the building and you go and reaching for some elbow pads, knee pads, helmets with the lights on them, the eyeglasses and those things.
Any further questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the Junction City Fire Department to apply for the 2018 Hero Fund Grant.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment?
Nope.
All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item is consideration to apply for the 2018 Horizon Pharma Education Grant to provide for educational opportunities for 2 personnel.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, presenting to you an opportunity to get a 100% no matching grant to send personnel for emergency medical services training. As an ALS agency, our need is great to have people that have those skills. Having people move from the AMT to the paramedic level is important to us. A paramedic can do so much more in patient care. And this is an opportunity to pay for the complete tuition in school for these folks to go to school.
Where would they go to school at?
They would go through Barton Community College. They have a couple of times a year, they do them in different locations, either at the Barton campus or here. I think the next one they're planning to do in Salina with the city of Salina. So if we receive this grant, then they would be driving back and forth once a week. The class is 8 hours on a Thursday. So they would drive down there, go to class, come back.
How long does it take them to complete that, Chief?
2 years.
How many paramedics we got now?
We have I think 9 paramedics, but we have 2 that are driver operator or engineers and 1 is a captain. So that takes away from our paramedic base because they have other responsibilities that they have to deal with. And to strengthen our paramedic base means we can increase our patient care. That's the big priority.
I'm all about free stuff, so I'll make a motion to approve the fire department to apply for the 2018 Pharma Education Grant.
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I do have a question. So if they're too busy to participate in the paramedic care, does that portion of their salary go away? or no?
No, so they're still paramedics and they still train to be paramedics.
Okay.
It's just that they're not a captain is in charge of the scene. He has to look at a grander scale. An engineer may be operating a pump instead of having the opportunity to take care of the patient. Depends on what their duty assignment is that day.
Okay, so they do, but maybe not necessarily every day.
It's not an everyday thing, and depending on the responsibilities that they have. With our manpower situation, we have multiple roles that we're doing.
And you're running short
Through
sometimes.
the process, yes, sir, we are running short.
Okay.
Can I ask another question? How will you determine which two people it would be? Do they have to, like, apply for it with
Push-ups.
you, or?
Actually, I have a pretty good list of firefighters that have said they want to do this.
Okay.
Right now, we have, I think we have up to 4 or 5 that want to go to school, and so that they can do paramedic medicine. They're already AEMTs, but they want to do the paramedicine because in the back of an ambulance, when you're an A and you know that there's a couple other things you could do to make that patient better, and you can't do them, it does become frustrating over time. So this would give us the opportunity to put the best people in the back of those trucks to give that best care.
There are different levels of care that can be provided by EMTs versus paramedics and so on. This is what he's talking about. So,
Yes, we have 3 levels of care. There's basic or EMT, there's an advanced EMT, and then there's paramedic. And through those different levels, we can do certain things. As a basic, you can't do IVs, then there's certain other things and certain drugs you can't give. An A can give some drugs, but not all. And a paramedic can do just about everything out in the field. So that we're providing that higher patient care, getting that higher patient care, and that survival rate increases. Especially when we have these long runs, sometimes like we have off the interstate or in the county. It makes a huge difference. That's why we had 3 saves last year. We had 3 cardiac saves last year because we had the right crew at the right time.
any further questions?
Nope.
All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item is the consideration to apply for the 2018 BNSF Rail Foundation grant, provide an educational opportunity for 2 more personnel.
This is more of a backup to a backup. These grants, they come around certain times of the year. BNSF has this foundation grant for education, and emergency service responders are a priority on their grant list. So we have an opportunity. So I believe in the only way you find out you don't get a grant is you don't apply. So if we say no, if one says no and the other one says yes, we still win. If both say yes, we really win, because then we have the opportunity to send more people and do more things with our service.
So what kind of training would this grant get those 2 people?
This would be paramedic class training.
Paramedic class?
So the same
Same-
thing, just different?
Same thing, just a different foundation.
Gotcha.
One of the things now that I have people in place in positions and they're doing their part, I can now start doing my part and researching grants and applying for grants and trying to bring those in.
This is a 100%er also?
100%.
Free money's good money.
That's what you get when you cut the chief's budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
I
look
was
for
gonna say,
grants.
It's creative.
yeah.
This is what you get when I have people that can do other things and I can concentrate on this.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the Junction City Fire Department to apply for the 2018 BNSF Rail Foundation grant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Yeah, I said aye quietly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Comments, Mr. Underhill.
Actually, I don't think I have anything this evening, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Mr. Albritton?
Yeah, we have a animal shelter meeting tomorrow at 3. So we'll be there and some stuff. Possibly, I probably have some stuff to report next meeting regarding that. I believe that's it.
Commissioner Brown?
Mayor, the Flint Hills Regional Council, of which I'm on, is, the subject came up of a $115,000 line of credit that the Flint Hills Regional Council currently have, which is a problem. It was brought up in this last thing as to what might we have to do? And obviously, once again, one of the ideas was to maybe raise the dues again. I think currently it's 60 cents per person of population. I think we pay between, Alan, I think 14 and 15,000, something like that, ballpark-wise. They had about $23,000 in the bank. It's kind of touch and go with this. We have 23 or 24. We picked up a couple of new members, I believe. I had some questions when I first started on that, whether or not, but I've grown very fond of the Flint Hills Regional Council. I think it's an important networking group for us. And I actually enjoy going to the meetings with Ben and Honey. And we do have some very good discussions, particularly, we get a lot of information, particularly from Fort Riley, that I think a lot of times we don't get. And sometimes, Alan, I think you and Pat probably get that, and Phyllis, but a lot of stuff we hear there. And so I think that is in the realm of possibility of raising that at some future point, possibly too much as a dollar, what the discussion was per entity. So the concern obviously is that line of credit, and so we'll just have to see what plays out in there. One of the big topics there was Manhattan sales tax being way down. Now, and I think you know a lot about that. I'm not saying that's, that doesn't affect it, but our sales tax has been doing very well. I mean, I've been actually shocked out how well it's been doing the last couple of months, I think for April and May.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Very well. I mean, was it 15%? Was it
5 to 7%.
5 to 7, something like that? Very well. I don't know what's causing that, but I hope it keeps up. That's a problem we need to have more often.
People spending money.
Yeah. And I think that's really, really good. So let's hope that Manhattan's even, they did did you put that, Alan? They did a hiring freeze over there
We have a hiring freeze going on.
and stuff. So, and that's 2010 Junction City.
And they're raising their mill levy 1 mil, Raleigh County raising 2 something mil.
I only mention that because it is kind of a barometer for what goes on over here. I'm just shocked that there's so much of a disparity between.
The only difference, and this goes back to maybe some of the conservative nature we have developed here in our budgeting process, is, as you know, last year we cut back the amount of sales tax expected in our budget. We're still living on the estimated expenses higher and revenue lower. And if you get that to balance, you're going to win at the end. I think they were in a situation over there where it grew. It's going to grow tomorrow, and it's going to grow next year, and the following year, and the following year. And they got caught up in that cycle, I think, a little bit, which can happen. Trust me.
I want to thank the group that was here tonight. It's very difficult when you have that many constituents sitting in the gallery and go against what they feel so passionately about. I know that was difficult for all of us, but I do appreciate the way they went about it. They're professional. They didn't go after any of us in any way, shape, or form. And I was, as far as social media or anything like that, I was very appreciative of that. But I just want to thank them for what they did. And I meant what I said about the Friends of Animals and what they've done for our animal program at the shelter since they took it over. They've done a wonderful job, and I'm very proud of what they do and continue to do and will continue to do in the future. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I hope everybody got out today and voted. Today was vote day. Exercise your right. I know I did, and I saw several other of us out voting today, too. Tomorrow is our next MAC, MRC meeting, the Military Affairs and the Manhattan Relations, or Military Relations Manhattan. We have a joint luncheon tomorrow at Fort Riley Conference Center at 11:30, and the guest speaker is the Commanding General of the 1st Infantry Division, Major General Kolashevsky. So looking forward to hear what he has to say. To the folks, right now there's quite a few people attending that. We also have the announcement today went out that a new MAC director has been hired. His name is Craig Bender. He's still active duty lieutenant colonel. I believe he's coming out of Fort Bragg, so he'll be here sometime hopefully by the end of the year, because he's still active duty. So once he's done with that, so we're looking forward to him getting here and getting on board, and looking forward to that. Also, all this week on Fort Riley is Victory Week. It's something that they celebrate every year, so you have a lot of, I call it friendly competition between the different units, and different activities on posts. On Friday, they'll have the Victory Cup, or the Commander's Cup. Victory Cup will be on Friday. So last year, I think it was the 97th MPs actually ended up winning that. So I think they won it maybe 2 years in a row. So it's a lot of good competition on Fort. If you need something to do this weekend, float your boat is here again, plus bike races. So that's, Saturday and Sunday. So if you want to go out and float your boat, you can try that, or bike races. And I want to mention too, in the community, I know there's been several opportunity, or several times where different groups and organizations have come together for back-to-school type events where, they've raised money and funds to buy book bags and things like that, supplies for the kids going back to school. There's another one of those that's going to be happening this weekend that we've kind of seen the last couple of years, and that's the Foster Cuts, where they bring the kids in, get their hair all cut, looking good for school and everything. They've partnered with the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association this year for backpacks for these kids and everything, so that'll be a nice event. And the last thing, I'd just like to give a shout out. Last weekend I was away, but my volunteer team for my Saturday cleanups, they continued that operation, and I can report so far this year we have did 30 Saturday cleanups, and I'm going to say that's approximately 3,100 or more gallons of trash that's been picked up off the streets, and our community looks really, really good, and I thank everybody for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Stites for doing a nice job tonight on the animal ordinances and so on. You did a good presentation. It's very informative, and I thank you for doing that. For folks that didn't see the land bank meeting tonight, we made a proposal regarding using the land bank lots to sell to people in the school district and St. Xavier School System at a cost of $0. We're going to have Lance Custer, who serves as our listing agent through Coldwell Banker, work with our city attorney to develop guidelines for that so that we can ensure that houses are built. And I think there's a lot of interest in doing that from the new teacher's breakfast that I was at last week, where I pitched the idea, and it was very well received. We may be extending that to some other entities as well. Economic development, I haven't said too much about that for a while. Mickey continues to have lots of input. Since we've had CAMSO come to town, we've lost our one building that we can really market. So we have land, but most companies want an existing building to do something with. So they're kind of looking around now to try to get the investor group to build a building. And there's some other opportunities regarding a rail line here that we'll kind of see what happens with that. This year at the AUSA meeting in Washington, D.C. in October, our EDC director will be attending that again. We're trying to get our new military affairs director to go to that event with her as well. We will be holding an economic development reception for all the vendors there at the meeting, to try to get them to look into moving their business or coming to Junction City, and turn that military affairs director position into kind of a position that assists EDC. So we market our number one asset being right next door to Fort Riley, where they can do business and work with teams on the ground right here locally. So we're trying to transform that position to a ceremonial position to actually an economic development driver. So good discussion tonight. I thank you everyone for their input. I think things went well. We're not here to please people. We're here to do the right thing. In a perfect world, I wish we could. And I think the group did a great job, and were very respectful, and their comments were very appropriate. And I like how they're doing things, why they conduct themselves. So it was a good discussion. So, Mr. Dinkle?
Don't have much tonight. We working on a bulk sewer rate, and Lee and I make proposals to Grandview Plaza and Chapman. I think we got a number pretty close we can do. Lindsay and I had some discussion with Ralph Tellis last week, who did our rate study a few years ago, and the percentage of what it pulls out for just bulk treatment rather than collection as well. So we're working on that. Also, the process to annex the land where the school's going to go on is, we're starting that process now too. So
Very good.
that's all I got. Thank
Mr.
you.
Stites?
You took my one additional thing. So we're working on the annexation and then,
Sorry.
that's all right. I didn't have it written down. Now I'm gonna work on those various research projects. In regard to the dangerous dog, when I look into that, is there anything in particular that we've gone over, the commission has seen that commission would want seen in that particular ordinance? I'm just asking, because
Just any ambiguities that you see, your eyes better than ours. It leads to less of a problem in the courtroom, so.
I can find.
Obviously, I'm sure you've come up with some issues that Judge McComb may have brought up that you might want to fix.
In regard to that, no, because I'm not, the one interesting thing with the dangerous dog declaration is we haven't ran into an actual declaration of a dangerous dog, because the one issue before that Ms. Altz talked about, which was resolved pre-me taking office as city prosecutor, a part of the resolution there was to get the dog out of the city and never return to the city, and for that they dropped the dangerous dog declaration. So it made happen what we wanted to happen, but we have yet to actually have a hearing where we see whether or not the judge declares a dangerous dog. And so, given that between the public defender, the judge, and I, we have some of the most defense-minded history and experience, I don't want anything with ambiguity in the law. That way everything's crystal clear.
Right.
If it gets appealed to district court and the Court of Appeals, I always want to see Junction City to be a case that's good for us and not bad for us. So I'll see what I find to be ambiguous. I'll prepare a memo and a proposed ordinance, and we'll go from there.
Very well. Thank you. Ms. Miller?
And the only thing I have tonight is just to remind that I need each of you in the commission to sign
Budget.
the budget afterwards. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Melton?
Nothing.
Chief Breesy?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I wanted to take this time to invite you and the public Friday night, 5 o'clock, Heritage Park for our annual block party. This is our version of National Night Out. We were doing it, I think, like June 1st the last couple years, and there was a conflict there. And so we thought we'd move it up to August where it's a little cooler, and because in June 1 it was still 100 and some degrees. At 5 o'clock, it begins. At 5:30, the food comes in, and there's a lot of different food this year. We're going to have pizza from 3 different pizza establishments, hot dogs, hamburgers, ice cream, and pulled pork. And that starts at 5:30. At 6 o'clock, we're going to have a SWAT demonstration. At 6:30, a K-9 demonstration. And last year, Vice Mayor Fitzgerald put on the bite suit and got attacked by our K-9. And it was really cool because the dog took her around in circles. And I think she said she's going to volunteer to do that again this year. At 7 o'clock, we'll do a less lethal demonstration. And 3 people have already volunteered to get tasered by one of my detectives. And we'll shoot one of our less lethal rounds, a beanbag round, and show what some of the equipment that we use. We'll have all of our vehicles out there, and we'll have other vehicles that some people are going to do their car show. And so that will be fun. And then at 7:30, we're going to have an hour-long program for a magician, and then at 9 o'clock, our movie in the park, which I believe will be our last one, and it's called Batman Lego Movie. And so please come out, hang out with the police, and eat some good food, and we'll see you Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief Johnson?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Ibarra?
Mayor, Commissioners, Junction City is hosting the 4th annual Kansas Chapter APWA Snow Rodeo, so we invite you to come out to watch the operators of the equipment. We are having a snowplow competition, loader competition, and grader competition. We have 8 cities and 2 counties competing in there, so we have over 50 contestants. And we'd like to invite you to come out and watch these guys operate the equipment. They're very good at what they do, and kind of see how they do things. So,
Where at?
the South Boat Ramp at the State Park in Milford.
Okay.
It will be tomorrow, Thursday, and we will start at 9 o'clock.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lazier? Mr. Peterson? Mr. Bernstein, since you're here?
Nothing. I commend the commission on how they handled the large group this evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Gurman?
Nothing, sir.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.